Have you ever had that specific, slightly creeping sensation? You know the one I'm talking
Oh, I
about?
think I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah. So you're sitting at dinner talking to a friend about, say, buying a new espresso machine. You haven't searched for it. You haven't typed it into a browser. You just said the words out loud.
Right.
And then 10 minutes later, you open Instagram or Chrome, and what's the first ad you see? A sleek stainless steel espresso maker?
Yeah, the classic "my phone is listening to me" mimulus. It's probably the single most common conspiracy theory in tech.
Yeah.
And I really hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but the reality is actually worse than if they were just recording your voice.
Oh, wait, worse. How can it actually be worse than a literal wiretap?
Because recording audio takes a ton of data and processing power. What's actually happening is that the predictive algorithms have become so sophisticated based on your location, who you're with, your purchase history, and just thousands of other data points that they know what you want before you do.
Right.
Yeah, they aren't listening to your words. They are predicting your behavior.
That feels just incredibly invasive. And even if we know logically that there isn't a guy in a van with headphones on, the result is kind of the same. It's that feeling of being in a room with the two-way mirror. You know, you're the one looking at the screen, but you can't shake the sense that there's a whole industry on the other side just taking notes on your eye movements.
That's a very fair assessment.
Hmm.
I mean, in 2026, that's not paranoia anymore. It's just the baseline of the data economy.
Mm.
We're at a point where the trade-off for using a smartphone is implicitly agreeing to be tracked.
Right.
Companies collect massive data sets, governments are constantly requesting backdoors, and apps, even the flashlight ones, seem to want to know your location history just to, turn on a light bulb.
Which perfectly brings us to the stack of research we have on the desk today for this deep dive. We are looking at a solution that claims to opt you out of that entire system. It's called GrapheneOS.
Yes, GrapheneOS.
It's a mobile operating system that's been making some serious waves in the technical community. And the big question, our mission to answer today, is pretty simple. Is this a realistic tool for a normal person to reclaim their privacy, or is it just going to turn your expensive smartphone into a useless brick?
It's the vital question. We really need to cut through the marketing smoke, or, in this case, the lack thereof, since they don't exactly have a marketing budget, and figure out if this is actually usable for you, the listener.
So let's unpack this. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the software itself, let's set the scene. Why are we even talking about this right now? Why is privacy suddenly such a massive hot topic in 2026?
Well, privacy has shifted from being a luxury item for the tinfoil hat crowd to a baseline necessity for everyone.
Mm.
And we have the data to back that up now. If you look at the independent study we have here from Doug Leith at Trinity College Dublin, the findings are frankly startling.
I saw that in the notes. This is the study about deactivated services, right?
Precisely. Leith found that both Google and Apple send identifiable data back to their servers on average every 4.5 minutes.
Every 4.5 minutes.
Yeah. And here is the key insight from that source. This happens even when you haven't logged in, and even when you have explicitly turned the tracking toggles off in your settings.
Wait, so I toggled the switch that says off. The screen literally says off, but the data stream doesn't actually stop.
Essentially, yes. The OS is fundamentally designed to phone home. It sends your IMEI, which is your device's unique serial number, your phone number, and telemetry data. It's sort of like locking your front door, but the architect left a window open that you physically cannot close.
That feels inherently dishonest to me. It's like pressing the close door button in an elevator that isn't connected to anything, just a placebo.
It's a design choice. In the commercial ecosystem, the phone is a terminal for the company first and a tool for you second. And that is exactly where GrapheneOS enters the picture. It's fundamentally different because of its origin. It's based on AOSP, the Android open source project.
Okay, for those who aren't tech historians, we should probably define that clearly, because people hear Android and they immediately think Google.
Right. Think of AOSP as the engine and the chassis of a car. It's the core code that runs the device.
Yeah.
Google Android, the thing running on a normal Samsung or Pixel, is that exact same car, but Google has painted it, put their GPS in the dashboard, locked the hood so you can't see the engine, and put a salesman in the passenger seat who writes down everywhere you drive.
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that. So GrapheneOS is the car without the salesman.
It's the car, stripped back to the bare metal, with reinforced armor plating and a steering wheel that only you control. It's a non-profit project, 100% open source. But here is the fascinating twist, and something that always surprises people when they look into this. GrapheneOS is designed specifically to run on Google Pixel devices.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The irony is just palpable. You want the most private phone in the world, one that specifically blocks Google from tracking you, so you have to go buy a phone hardware made by Google.
It does sound completely contradictory, doesn't it?
It really does.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of security, it makes perfect sense. The developers of GrapheneOS aren't choosing Pixels because they like the brand. They choose them because Pixels currently have the best secure hardware support on the market.
How so? Because usually we think of Google hardware as being just a vehicle for their software ecosystem.
It all comes down to the root of trust. Pixels have a specialized chip called the Titan security chip. It allows for something called verified boot with custom keys.
Verified boot. Let's break that down for the audience.
Sure. So when you turn on a normal phone, the hardware checks the software to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. Most phones only trust the software from the manufacturer. If you try to load something else, the phone just refuses to start.
It locks you out.
Exactly. But Google Pixels allow you to replace that trust. You can tell the hardware, hey, trust GrapheneOS now, and the hardware respects that. It allows you to lock the bootloader again after installing a custom operating system.
So you're basically using Google's excellent hardware security, the fortress they built, to lock Google out of the software.
Exactly. It's using their own walls to keep them out.
That is a level of poetic justice I can really get behind. Okay, let's dive into the features from our sources. What makes this different from just buying a standard Pixel and turning off the location toggle?
The first and most important feature is what they call privacy by default.
The clean slate approach.
Right. When you boot up a standard Android phone, it is immediately talking to Mountain View. It's syncing contacts, checking location, looking for updates via Google Play services. It assigns you an advertising ID right out of the box. When you boot up GrapheneOS, it is silent. There is zero mandatory telemetry.
So it's not just that they added a do not track button, it's that the tracking code isn't even there to begin with.
Correct. The philosophy, as quoted directly in their official documentation, is privacy without the unnecessary frills. Contrast this with stock Android. Even if you spend an hour going through the settings and disabling every single toggle you can find, the system itself is still collecting your IMEI and your approximate location via cell towers. GrapheneOS just strips that out at the system level.
Okay, but here is the fear. And I think every single listener is thinking this right now. If I strip out all the Google stuff, does my phone become a dumb phone?
That's the big worry, yeah.
Do I lose WhatsApp? Do I lose my banking apps? Do I lose Uber? Because I love privacy, but I also really love getting a ride home at 2 a.m.
This brings us to what I consider the jewel in the crown of GrapheneOS. It's a feature called Sandboxed Google Play.
Sandboxed! It sounds like a playground feature, but I have a feeling it's a bit more technical than that.
Think of a sandbox in the literal sense. It's a contained area. In a standard phone, Google Play services are integrated super deep into the operating system. They have what we call privileged access.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they can see everything, your files, your location, your app usage, because they are treated as part of the OS infrastructure itself.
So they have the master keys to the house?
Yes, but in GrapheneOS, you actually can install Google Play services, but the OS treats them just like any other regular app. It puts them in a sandbox. So Google runs, but it doesn't get special privileges.
Okay, so Google Maps works, but it only knows what I explicitly tell it.
Exactly. It doesn't have system-level access.
Yeah.
This allows you to run the vast majority of apps you rely on, WhatsApp, Signal, Spotify, even Google Maps. But Google's ability to track you across the entire device is severely crippled. It thinks it's on a normal phone, but it's actually in a highly controlled room.
And I read about something in the source material called user profiles that makes this even better.
Yes, this is an absolute game changer for people who want balance. You can create a secondary user profile, kind of like having a separate login on a computer. You can install all the Google stuff in that second profile.
Oh, I see.
And when you aren't using it, you just log out. The profile goes to sleep. No background tracking, no battery drain. You can literally turn off the Google part of your life when you're done with it.
I love that. It's not an all or nothing choice. Now let's talk about control, because sometimes, even if I trust the OS, I don't necessarily trust the specific app I just downloaded. Like I downloaded a calculator app the other day that asked for my contacts. Why does a calculator need to know who my grandmother is?
It doesn't. It just wants that data to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where GrapheneOS's granular control comes in. They have this feature called storage scopes.
How does that work?
On a normal phone, if you want to send a photo in a chat app, the app usually asks for permission to access your photos. If you say yes, technically, on most older versions of Android, that app has access to your entire gallery, every photo you've ever taken.
Which is terrifying when you think about it.
It is. Storage Scopes changes that completely. It allows you to create a dummy environment. You can let the app see only the specific files or contacts you explicitly select. The app thinks it has full access, but it's actually looking at an empty room with just the one photo you put in there.
That is brilliant. It's basically gaslighting your apps, but for privacy.
Huh. In a way, yes. You're feeding the app exactly what it needs to function and nothing more. And it extends to network permissions, too. This is a really big one. You can completely block internet access for specific apps.
So going back to that calculator app I mentioned.
You can just cut off its internet supply entirely.
Yeah.
It can calculate 2 plus 2 all day long, but it can't send that data anywhere because the OS has physically walled it off from the Wi-Fi and data connection.
Wow. And I saw something in the notes about sensors. This sounded really sci-fi to me.
It does, but it's very real. Apps can use your accelerometer and gyroscope. Those are the things that tell the phone which way is up to fingerprint you.
Wait, how does a gyroscope identify me?
The way you hold your phone is actually unique to you. The micro tremors in your hand, the way you walk, the specific angle you tilt the screen. That data, when collected over time, forms a biometric profile almost as unique as a fingerprint. Advertisers use it to verify that you are the one holding the device, even if you switched accounts.
That is wild. I had no idea.
GrapheneOS allows you to block apps from reading those sensors unless they absolutely need them, like for a game or for navigation. It basically creates a generic flat signal for everyone else.
It's amazing to think about how much data we leak just by walking around with these things in our pockets. Now, we've talked a lot about privacy keeping our data in, but what about security, keeping the bad guys out? Because the source material specifically mentions hardening.
Yeah, this is where we move from anti-tracking to anti-hacking. GrapheneOS isn't just private, it's fortified.
What are the specs here? Without getting too bogged down in the acronym soup, of course.
High level, it uses something called memory tagging.
Break that down for us.
Okay, think of your phone's memory like a massive filing cabinet. In a normal phone, sometimes the labels on the files get mixed up due to bugs in the code. A hacker can exploit this confusion to slip a fake file in like malicious code where it really doesn't belong.
And the phone just runs it.
Exactly. That's how many common exploits work. Memory tagging essentially color codes every single file and every single folder at the hardware level. If a blue file tries to go into a red folder, the processor sees the mismatch instantly and just kills the process. It stops the hack before it can even execute.
So even if you click a bad link, the phone has built-in armor against it.
Precisely. It creates a much higher wall for attackers. And then there's the auto reboot feature, which is honestly my personal favorite for physical security.
How does that one work?
You have to understand the difference between data at rest and data in use. When your phone is off or freshly rebooted and not yet unlocked, your data is fully encrypted. The keys to unscramble it are not in the memory. But once you unlock it that very first time, those keys are loaded into RAM so you can open apps quickly.
Okay, so if a thief snatches my phone out of my hand while I'm using it, the keys are loaded.
Right. And forensic tools can try to extract those keys from the memory. GrapheneOS lets you set a timer, say 18 hours. If you haven't unlocked your phone in 18 hours, it automatically forces a reboot.
It puts itself into a coma to protect the secrets.
Exactly. It wipes the keys from memory. So if your phone is confiscated or stolen and sits in an evidence bag for a day, by the time they try to crack it, it has reverted to its most secure possible state.
And I read it shuts down the USB-C port too.
Yes. When the device is locked, you can set it to totally disable data transfer on the USB port. It will still charge, but it won't talk. This effectively neutralizes tools like gray key boxes that police or hackers use to brute force passcodes through the charging port.
It just effectively plays dead.
It plays dead. Forensic experts cited in our sources claim that in real-world scenarios, a locked GrapheneOS device is almost impossible to crack.
That is a very bold claim, but the specs really seem to back it up. Okay, so we have painted a very rosy picture here today. It's private, it's secure, it gaslights nosy apps, but I want to do a reality check.
Absolutely. We have to be honest about the experience.
Because I'm looking at the notes here, and there's a whole section titled Trade-offs. And we promised you, the listener, an honest assessment. So give it to us straight. What sucks about this?
Well, GrapheneOS is not magic. It relies on specific hardware. As we mentioned earlier, it is only officially supported on recent Pixels, Pixel 6 and up, ideally the 8, 9, or 10. If you have a Samsung or a Motorola, you are completely out of luck. You cannot install this.
So you have to buy new hardware if you aren't already in the Pixel ecosystem. That's a real barrier.
It is. And then there are the convenience costs.
Yeah.
We have to be real about this too. There is no native Google Assistant.
So I can't just yell, "Hey, Google, set a timer for pasta across the kitchen."
Not natively. No. Because that feature requires your microphone to be always listening and sending audio snippets to Google's servers to process the voice command. That is exactly what GrapheneOS is fundamentally designed to prevent.
Okay, that makes sense, but it's definitely a lifestyle change for some people. And what about the car? Android Auto.
This is a huge one for commuters. Android Auto simply does not work.
Wait, at all?
At all. Android Auto requires deep, privileged integration with the operating system to project the display onto your car's screen. GrapheneOS does not allow that level of privilege for security reasons. So if you rely on plugging your phone in and seeing maps on your dashboard that's gone, you're back to a magnetic mount and looking at the phone screen like it's 2015.
Yeah, that is a deal breaker for a lot of people. What about banking? I feel like banks are notoriously finicky about device security.
This is the trickiest part of daily use. While Sandbox Play works for almost everything, banking apps rely on a security check called remote key attestation. They ask the OS, "Hey, are you official certified Google Android?" And GrapheneOS has to say, "No, I'm GrapheneOS."
And then the bank app just freaks out.
Some do. Most basic banking apps work fine for checking balances, but Google Wallet, specifically the tap-to-pay NFC feature, is very hit or miss. Often, tap-to-pay is just disabled because the OS isn't officially certified by Google.
So you might have to actually carry a physical credit card like a caveman.
Yes. You might have to engage in the ancient ritual of inserting a chip into a machine. There are workarounds sometimes. Using that separate user profile we talked about helps, but it is not guaranteed to be seamless. You have to be okay with a little friction.
And what about the actual installation? I feel like the phrase installing an operating system sends a shiver down the spine of anyone who isn't a certified IT professional.
It's surprisingly easy now, actually, thanks to something called the Web USB installer. You plug the phone into your computer, open a secure web page, and just click a few buttons. It does the rest. But you are still completely wiping your phone.
The screen goes black. Weird text scrolls by. It's scary.
It requires some confidence. You have to be willing to take that leap. And once it's installed, there is a learning curve.
How long of a curve are we talking?
I'd say about 1 to 2 hours of active setup and maybe a weekend of adjustment. You need to understand how to manage those permissions we talked about. You're moving from a system that does everything for you because it functionally owns you to a system that explicitly asks you what you want to do.
It stops treating you like a child and starts treating you like a system admin.
Exactly. And that responsibility definitely takes getting used to.
So it's really a spectrum then.
It is. You can go moderate, use Sandbox Play, use WhatsApp, use Uber. You get 90% of the convenience with significantly better privacy. You just lose Android Auto and maybe tap to pay. Or you can go extreme.
The fully de-Googled life.
Right. Use only open source app stores like F-Droid or Aurora Store. Use Signal for everything. Aim for maximum silence on the network. The choice is entirely yours, which is the whole point of the project.
So pulling this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? We've looked at the landscape, the features, and the admittedly real trade-offs.
If we summarize the sources, specifically looking at the comprehensive reviews from Wired and the specialized security forums, the consensus is pretty clear. GrapheneOS is likely the most private and usable mobile OS on the market right now in 2026.
That's the gold standard.
It is. But its core value isn't just about hiding. It's about building technical, verifiable defenses against real adversaries, rather than just relying on a big company's marketing promise that they care about your privacy.
It's trust through verification, not trust through blind faith.
Precisely. And that naturally leads to the ultimate question for the listener. Are you willing to invest those few hours? Are you willing to sacrifice the convenience of a smart voice assistant? Is that a fair price to pay for knowing that your location, your private conversations, and your photos aren't being siphoned off to a server farm somewhere just to build a behavioral profile of your life?
It really just comes down to how much you value being the customer versus being the product.
That's it, exactly.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over. We spend hours researching the specs of our phones, the camera megapixels, the processor speed, the screen brightness, but we rarely step back and ask what the software is doing for us versus what it's doing to us.
We focus entirely on the hardware we hold, not the software that holds us.
Exactly. If our devices are constantly reporting on us, Are they really our tools? Or are we just walking around carrying the most sophisticated tracking tags in human history? Technology should serve us, not the other way around. If we don't actively choose our tools, we kind of lose the right to complain about how they use us.
Very well said.
That's it for this deep dive into GrapheneOS. Thanks for listening, stay curious, and maybe go check your app permissions today. We'll catch you on the next one.